Thank you all for taking the time to join the webinar. My name is Chih. I'm the Marketing Director of Cygnus Instruments. For those of you who are not familiar with Cygnus Instruments, Cygnus Instruments was established in the UK in 1983 and has since been a leading manufacturer of ultrasonic testing equipment for structure integrity above and below water. And today, in today's webinar, we are super excited to showcase our latest release, Cygnus Underwater Ultrasonic Thickness Gauge. And I'm joined by Steve, our sales director, who will be talk about the industry uses and applications, and Simon, our technical sales engineer, who will be walking you through the top features and useful functionalities. And next up is Matt, our technical support manager. He will be sharing some practical tips on how to prepare and maintain the gauge for optimal performance. During the webinar, if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the Q&A section, which you can find at the top of the screen if you're joining from a computer, or in the chat if you're on a mobile. And we will answer all the questions at the end. And if we cannot answer your questions, we'll contact you afterwards. Okay, with all that being said, I hand over to Steve now. Enjoy the webinar.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Steve Warner, the sales director here at Cygnus Instruments. Cygnus has been supplying into the diving industry for over 4 decades now, closely working with the great people who are in this industry. And it is fantastic to welcome a number of you to this webinar. Recently, we have reached out to a number of divers to develop this product, listening to their feedback and bringing in the new functions. The old Underwater Mark IV had a small red LED display, while the new Underwater has a big bright yellow LCD display for those low visibility dives. Now bringing the twin crystal probe into the underwater gauge as well, enable measurement of highly corroded structures. With the A-scan to show the state of the material, be it corrosion or erosion, for the twin crystal probe, to align with the requirements of NDT standards, especially on rigs. Adding data logging capability to the gauge as well as being able to connect via umbilical to the surface. Additionally, there is a unique function of the depth indicator, which is displayed on the screen and recorded on the data logger version. Applications includes bridges, piers, jetties, docks, underwater pipes, ships, boats, barges, moorings, subsea pilings, offshore inspection work, and obviously you can use the gauge onshore when using couplant. Please reach out if you have any suggestions for future developments. We are always keen to work with and listen to our customers. With that, I'd like to pass you over to Simon.
Hi. So I'm Simon Moulding. I'm the technical sales engineer for Cygnus Instruments, and I'm going to run through the box, the kit of contents, and also some of the functionality of the gauge as well. So I'm just going to switch my camera over so we can see the box a little clearer. So when you get your gauge, you'll get a nice yellow box with all the equipment inside. So what you can expect to see. This is the probe version of the gauge. So inside of the box, what you're going to receive is the main part of the box, so the main part of the gauge, the main body of the gauge with all the equipment inside of it. Underneath here, you've got a lanyard in there. So if you do drop the gauge, if you've got the lanyard fitted, it won't sink to the bottom. We've got the 2 main batteries here in the case, and underneath there we've got the charging. We've also got there the spare membranes for the single crystal probe. Around the outside, we have our storage for our probes, twin crystal and single crystal in this version here. And over here we have the connection to, if you've got a data logging on the Pro version, we've then got the cables there to connect the battery to your PC for downloading all of the data. Up here as well, we've got a little piece of, or a little bit of membrane coupling there as well for use with the membranes on the single crystal probe. On the top there, we've got our calibration certificates there as well, and there will also be a manual in there, so you can got reference on how to use it. So, moving on to the gauge itself, what we have here is the Pro version. The good thing about the new version is that central. Okay. The good thing about the Pro version is we can use the single crystal and the twin crystal probes. That's also available on the Plus version as well. The single crystal probe we have here was used in the previous version of the gauge and is suitable for most applications. It's the gold standard of probes for accurate measurement and through coating. It uses multiple echoes to get a really reliable reading, and we can also use deep coat function as well to measure through coatings of up to 20 millimeters or 3/4 of an inch thick. The single crystal probes do have their shortcomings, however. Heavy corrosion and pitting can make it difficult to get a stable reading. So we've now got, as well as the single crystal probe, we've got the twin crystal. The twin crystal probe is new to the underwater gauge. This probe is suitable for highly corroded and pitted materials and sometimes cast iron, any sort of material that's quite attenuative and doesn't allow for multiple echo to be very reliable. These probes need to be, or can use a choice of different measuring modes. The echo and the single echo modes are available with this probe. Echo can be used for measuring through very thin coatings where there is heavy backwall corrosion. And then the single echo is used for uncoated, very highly corroded and pitted materials. So switching the gauge on is fairly simple. Got all the control buttons here, 3 control function buttons, and then the center button here we slide up. It shows our logo, then some information on the gauge itself, and then goes directly into the measuring screen. So the display screen up the top here, we've got the single crystal probe attached. So on the top, we've got the battery indication. We've then got the measurement mode we've got fitted there. So in this case, we've got the single crystal probe. So it's currently measuring in multiple echo, ME mode. We've got the calibration figure there. So we've got the velocity of sound shown. So in this case, we've got 5846 meters per second shown. And then in the top right-hand corner, we have the S2C, which is the probe we've currently got fitted to the gauge. In the center, we'll have the measurements shown there, and I'll show you what it looks like. When I put the actual probe onto a test piece, it comes up with 15 millimeters. So that's the most basic of the measurement modes on the gauge itself. We can then switch this across here to the next screen. This shows the A scan. This quite clearly shows the multiple echo mode. So what we've got here is the first three echoes there being shown up and highlighted by the yellow triangles at the bottom there. What it's doing in this mode is it's comparing the echoes of the first echo, the second echo, and then comparing that to the second echo and the third echo to give you a very, very stable and reliable reading. Next screen across here is the live depth gauge screen. So in the back of the gauge, show you a second, we have our depth gauge or depth sensor there in the center of the label, which basically measures how deep the diver actually is when he's doing a survey. And that's shown on the screen here. And it's also data logged as well if you've got the Pro version. Then we go back to the original screen as well. So there's 3 screens. There is a 4th screen. If you have the Pro version and you're doing some data logging, it will come up with a data logging screen as well. So the menu's on the actual gauge, very simple. If you've got the Pro version, you'll have the data logging screen. In this menu, we can drill into it. You can do different linear records or grid records, depending on what sort of survey you're doing. The next one down is quite easy to, also it's very, very easy to navigate. Just press the left-hand button here to scroll between the various options. And then when you want to go into the options itself, you press the center button, and then on the right hand side is to go backwards. So going into the measurement mode, over here we have the different measurements modes. We can have ME, which is for multiple echo, which is the only measurement mode available for the single crystal. But if you've got the twin crystal fitted, you can also change that to echo echo or single echo, depending on what sort of the corrosion level is. Oops, pop down. The resolution, you can change the resolution from 0.1 of a millimeter to 0.05 of a millimeter. So it's very accurate. And then you've also got your deep coat on or off. With a deep coat on, you can measure through up to 20 millimeters of coating. As long as that coating is well bonded to the material, you can measure that without any issues at all. So coming out of that screen now, we go into the probe screen. Into here, if you've got your twin crystal fitted rather than a single crystal, you can zero the probe. What that does is it calibrates the probe to the temperature, and it's also measuring the wear rate as well. The second one down is the probe APD. This is automatic probe detection. So this gauge is unique, where you can actually use all probes and it will automatically detect which probe you've got fitted to the gauge. Surface gauges, only works really on the twin crystal, but this gauge it basically applies to all different types of probes. So calibration is much simpler now. We've got this gauge. With the old gauge, what you had to do to calibrate was you had to separate the top unit and the battery, have a jumper cable, and then you use the buttons underneath the main body to set the calibration. On this, much easier. It's just another menu. So what we do to do the single point calibration is the most accurate way of calibrating. So to do this, we drop it into the actual menu itself. We place the probe onto the test piece, and depending on its thickness, we can adjust using the plus and minus keys. Press the middle button to confirm, and then to save the calibration, we press yes. And it's as simple as that. So there's no breaking the gauge apart and using jumper leads. It's as simple as just a menu-driven calibration. Secondly, we can calibrate via the 2-point calibration, which is only for the twin crystal probe. It's a little bit more accurate than the single point calibration for twin crystal, because it's just a little bit more accurate for that type of probe. Thirdly, we can use the velocity. So if you've done a survey previously and you know what the velocity of the material is, we can go into there and we can actually change the velocity of material based upon what you've previously tested. So I can press no change to velocity, so we keep it as it was. And thirdly, the least accurate way of calibrating is we have a database in here of various different material types. So we've got mild steel, tool steel, we've got stainless steels, all sorts of different velocities on the side. So it's showing the actual material on this side and then the velocity on the other side there. Lastly, I come out of those menus, we have the setup menu. So in the setup menu, it shows lots of different things that you can change on the gauge depending on where you are or what you require from the gauge. So we can set the A scan range to auto, or to whatever range you really want to look at. We can change the units from millimeters to inches, and the depth from metric to imperial as well. So you can look at that in feet. The salinity of water. So if you've got very salt water, we can change that, because obviously the density of water changes. So it can be accurate and the diver can be confident that he knows how deep he is. Battery state of charge. Time, date, brightness. The brighter you've got it, the less battery life you've got, but ultimately it lasts a long time. Automatic probe detection, we can turn that on and off, and then you can manually change which probe you've got fitted to the gauge itself. So manual set gain, auto logging is off. You can change that to on, and then all you do is you hold the probe onto the material for a certain length of time. The screen will flash and it will automatically log your data. So moving on to the batteries. So this battery, this this gauge we've got here has got the data transfer battery fitted, so you can connect that to your PC or to an umbilical to the surface. So you can transfer data or do a live A scan when you're doing your measurements. The other batteries we got with the gauge is exactly the same, but it doesn't have that. So if you've got the standard version or the plus version, this is a standard gauge, a standard battery you'll get with it. Charging is very similar to the Mark IV through that sensor pin there. So you basically charge it up from the sensor pin there. It uses the same charger as the old Mark IV gauge as well. To link it to top side, we provide a cable. So the cable will fit onto the bottom of a battery. If you wanted to do data logging, then you can then connect it to the PC via this USB stick or USB plug here. And from there, you can also do a live test as well. So if you've got this connected to an umbilical, it can do a live A scan and data reading as well. So I'm going to change my screen now to show you the various different variants of the gauge. So if I share my screen. Perfect. Is that showing? Yeah. So the standard version is very similar to the Mark IV gauge. What we've got in there is it uses the multiple echo measurements with a single crystal probe to give you a very reliable measurement every time you do a survey. Because it's got multiple echo measurement modes, we also got the deep coat there as well, so you can measure through 20 millimeters of, or even sort of 3/4 of an inch of coatings. We've got the depth display, which is brand new to the underwater gauge. And because we've got the new menus on there now, we can also really easily change measurement units, resolution. We've got the material list, auto probe detection, and auto set gain as well. And in the Plus version, it's got all of those features, including the capabilities of using a twin crystal probe in single echo mode or echo mode. It also has an A scan display as well. In the Pro version, it's got all of those things as well, including the auto log and data logging feature. The good thing about the data logging feature is that it live records. So instead of the previous versions of the gauge, when you uploaded the data from the gauge to Cygnus, it would actually log the time that you uploaded it. What this one is doing, what this gauge is doing, is it's actually logging every time you take a measurement. So it's real-time data logging. It also logs the depth as well when you're doing it. Okay, I've pretty much shown everything I need to show on this one. So I'm now going to pass you across to Matt Winter, who's going to explain the sort of care and sort of maintenance that you need when you're using the gauge. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Matt. I'm the Technical Support Manager for Cygnus Instruments. I'm just going to run through some sort of basic preparation of the gauge and maintenance, so you can ensure the equipment has longevity and provide you sort of any pain-free use. Just going to share a slide with you now. Okay, so to begin with, it's about preparing the gauge and checking the O-rings. So at first, you need to ensure that both O-rings are fitted, clean from debris and coated with Molykote 44 prior to connecting the battery. So you can see there on the end of the gauge, we have two O-rings fitted, the first O-ring and the second O-ring. Ensuring that the inside face of the battery is clean and free from defects. Ensuring that the face sealing battery O-ring is present, coated with Molykote 44 and free from debris. This O-ring is the primary seal. So we can see there the battery, the inside face should be clean and free from any defects and debris, and that end O-ring seal is present, also coated Molykote 44 and clean from any debris. It's important to only use Molykote 44 on the O-ring seals, as regular silicone grease can cause fitment issues. On the battery positions themselves, so we need to check the battery position to make sure it's fully engaged to the gauge body. So ensure the battery is fully secured to the gauge. You shouldn't be able to turn the battery any further, and the gap between the gauge and the battery should be minimal, as shown in this image here. If a gap is present, remove the battery and attempt to refit. Ensure threads have not crossed. This could cause the unit to flood if submerged in water. Checking the probe connector position, ensure the connector is fully secured to the gauge and will not turn any further. If a gap is present, please remove the probe and refit. Ensure the threads have not crossed. The connectors are face sealed and will not cause a flood. However, poor connections will lead to poor or no measurements, as water will ingress in between those connections. So as you can see there, the locking sleeve is fully engaged to the gauge body. And in this image here, we can see some threads on the show. So that shouldn't be how you take it down before a dive. Finally, we've got on-switch cleaning. So the on-switch can actually be removed from the gauge body and clean should you find operation has become stiff. This can occur when silt builds up behind the switch mechanism. Simply slide the switch up and use a small tool such as a small slotted screwdriver to remove the switch as shown. Wash the recess and the switch with clean fresh water and then reinsert the switch. So here's the key points here. So sliding the switch up, there's a small recess at the bottom of the switch and you can insert the screwdriver. Prise the switch away from the gauge body, so it's in that tilted position. Remove the switch, and now you can wash that with clean fresh water, so both the switch well and the switch itself. Okay, so we'd wash those down with clean fresh water, and then we can reinsert the switch. So tilt it towards the display end of the gauge body, and then push back down into the bottom of the switch well, and click into position. And the gauge is now ready to reuse. For post-use advice, we recommend to clean down the equipment using fresh, clean water. It should only be done with the battery fully secured to the gauge. Once the unit has been cleaned, it is advised to dry the unit off before disassembling and placing back into the carry case. Following these steps will enhance the longevity of the equipment and prevent damage to the equipment.
So that's the sort of basic maintenance tips there and preparation for the unit. I'm going to now hand you back to Chih whilst we have a look at some of the Q&A. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Matt. I hope everyone's finding the demonstrations and the webinar very interesting so far. And I think now we are ready to move on to the Q&As. Let's have a look at the Q&A section. Okay. So we have a few questions here. First one, what is the best probe to use? I believe that question is for Matt, please.
Yes, I can answer that. So yeah, in most situations, for most subsea use, we recommend the S2C to begin with, purely based on the fact that it uses multiple echo. So you've got the capabilities of measuring through coatings immediately, but also the 3 echo verification of that measurement. We do recommend generally to have more than one probe in the kit, so we'd recommend a twin crystal probe as well, normally the T5B in most situations. So we've got the backup option of echo to try and get a measurement this way if there's heavy pitting or heavy corrosion. And finally, obviously we can switch to thin gale echo if we're really struggling to get a measurement because of the level of corrosion. There is also the option for the T2C probe, which is quite good for plastics. So there may be plastic pipes you may want to measure. We recommend the T2C in that situation. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. There's another question. Can we use old probes of Mark IV with Mark V? Simon or
I'm happy to answer that again. Yeah.
Thank you.
So the Mark IV probes unfortunately aren't compatible with the Mark V. They do have different connectors fitted, so we can't use those going forward with the Mark V unit.
Okay, thank you. The next question is, how often do you recommend calibration? I think Matt, could you help us again? Thank you.
Again. So there's obviously two types of calibration. You've got the on-site calibration for the job you're doing. So we recommend, if you're carrying out a survey, carry out a calibration prior to each survey. Ideally, that should be done on a known sample of material that you are measuring. Ideally, if you can only do a single point calibration on the thickest end of that range, if you do have the option for 2-point, a thin sample and a thick sample is the best way to go. Externally, so for your annual, what we call an annual calibration, so that's yearly, we recommend sending to either Cygnus Instruments for a calibration or one of our approved service centres.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Next question, we have a new Cygnus dive. What is the difference with this model? Simon, you might.
Yeah, sure.
Please.
The difference between the new underwater and the dive, there's two real main things. The data logging is slightly more enhanced with the new underwater, whereas the data logging dive does linear data logging only, and the new underwater does linear data logging and also grid style data logging as well. So you've got an extra dimension there when you're doing your data logging and doing your surveys. The other main difference between the two gauges is the depth gauge. The depth gauge is unique to underwater, handheld underwater ultrasonic thickness gauges. It also data logs out that depth as well. So those two things, enhanced data logging and also the ability to read the depth as well.
Okay, thank you, Simon.
Okay.
Next question for calibration. Do you supply calibration block with the equipment? Which standard it complies? Matt, could you help with that?
So we don't supply a calibration block with the equipment. We do supply a test block, as we have done with all of our sort of previous editions of gauges, which is a 15mm test block. So that's simply for verifying the equipment's working. You can purchase calibrated step blocks, and again, normally they are purchased for the material that you're measuring, so it should align with that speed of sound material measuring to do a calibration prior to survey. However, yeah, we don't supply calibration blocks directly with the equipment.
Thank you, Matt. I hope that answers the questions. And see. Okay, we've got another question. Can you measure plastic pipes? Either Simon or Matt could help.
We can measure plastic pipes. So we suggest you do a single point calibration every time you do it. So you can calibrate the gauge to the plastics. Plastics are generally much more attenuative, so sound deadening rather than the steel. So much better to use a twin crystal probe with a single echo mode. It's very, very easy to do, but you need to be wary that it's a lot slower velocity than steel. But calibrate it with the twin crystal probe, which should be fine, absolutely fine.
Thank you, Simon. There's a question. What is the battery life of the gauge?
I can answer that one.
Thank you.
So the battery life, so it's for a single battery, we're looking at a minimum of 8 hours use, but across the two batteries that are supplied with the kit, that's 16 hours, which should be plenty enough time to get a survey done within a day. It is slightly less runtime than our previous edition of the gauge, the Mark IV, but there are far more features in this, a much larger display, better backlight, the depth sensor. So naturally that will be reduced compared to the previous version, but still 16 hours across the two batteries is an exceptional runtime for the unit.
Thank you. And what is the depth rating of the gauge? Another question. So
yeah, I'm happy
Matt,
to. Yeah,
thank
so
you.
the depth rating for the gauge is 300 meters, and that applies for both operational and non-operational use. So if the gauge is off, it's 300. If the gauge is on, it's 300 meters. As long as obviously the batteries and the probe are connected, as we've gone through during the maintenance tips earlier on. Okay.
Okay. The one Mark IV used to test over paint and coatings. Is Mark V able to do the same?
Yes, it is. Yeah, exactly the same. It can do everything the Mark IV can do, plus more. So it can not only measure through coatings like the Mark IV did, but can now, with the twin crystal, can measure very pitted and highly corroded materials as well. So yes, it does everything that the Mark IV did, plus more.
See if there's any more questions. Okay, next one. What features do we offer that users cannot get from another supplier?
Again, it's the depth gauge really. The depth is unique to underwater handheld ultrasonic thickness gauges. The depth gauge and the ability to data log those. So when you got your report back when you're using the Pro gauge, it will tell you how deep you were, the thickness measurement, the time. It's a lot more accurate than previous versions of the underwater gauge.
Thank you, Simon. I think that's all the questions. Let's just double check. Okay, so I believe that's all the questions. And
There's
which probe? There's another question. Sorry. Which probe is preferred by Cygnus? Single crystal or twin crystal?
Well, the most reliable probe is the single crystal probe. It's used multiple echo technology, so to verify the first echo and the second echo, and then verifies that against the echo between the second echo and the third echo. So it's much more. That's much more reliable than the twin crystal. But the twin crystal, because it uses echo and single echo, can be used much better on highly corroded materials. So you got the best of both worlds really. So you got highly sort of high coatings that can be done through with the single crystal, and then with the highly pitted stuff you can do it with the twin crystal. But we always recommend you do it. You start off with the single crystal, and then if you're having difficulties obtaining a good measurement, then switch to the twin crystal. Bring to the surface, change the probes over, and then try again with the twin crystal.
Thank you, Simon. Let's see. Okay, so I believe
that's one more question. Down, that's it.
Okay. Yeah, fine. Can we change the depth gauge to work with seawater or non-salt water?
Yes, you
That's
can.
another question.
So in the actual menu itself, it's got the ability to change the salinity of the water. So you can use it in fresh water and also in seawater and get a very accurate measurement of how deep the surveyor, the diver is at a particular time.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, there's a question, but it's about the webinar. So at the end, after the webinar, we will be able to share the video, so you can replay the video afterwards. Yeah, if you leave your email address, then yeah, we can share that, no problem. And we will also organize another session, so just look out on any emails coming from us. And if you'd like to join the next one, we'd be really pleased. Okay, so I think if there's no more questions, this is probably coming to the end of our webinar. So thank you all for joining the webinar. And if you do have any questions, or if you want to find out more about the product, please visit our website at cygnus-instruments.com, where you can download the brochure, or you can ask any questions through the website, or you can talk to us via the live chat. And also feel free to email us at sales@cygnus-instruments.com. Okay, so that's all from us. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.